The Avatar, The Last Airbender TV show on Netflix is going to be terrible. Or is it? Now, I get why people might be concerned. They probably should be, given how not so great the last few live-action attempts have been. Like, what was anybody thinking with that? And the departure of the creators of the animated series due to creative differences is definitely concerning. Very concerning. It implies a live-action version could differ significantly from the original. But I also believe a lot of the criticisms being thrown the show's way are premature. People are jumping to conclusions based on almost no information. For example, the whole Sokka thing. I've seen a lot of concern about how they've stripped out his early sexism from the show. Another example of getting rid of important character development. But Sokka's anti-feminist qualities aren't the only way to develop that character. There are many other options that could work just as well. Maybe he's critical of bending in the beginning, passing it off as an unnecessary gimmick. We see him making fun of Katara as she tries to manipulate water. As time passes, we're introduced to Aang and other benders, and it becomes increasingly difficult for Sokka to discredit all bending as not being that valuable. Turns out, he was only lashing out because he couldn't bend himself. It's made him feel self-conscious, less relevant. He's always wanted to be someone important, a guardian, a hero, and not being able to bend, that makes his journey that much more difficult. Gradually, Sokka comes to realize his own prejudice and why it exists, and he can finally start to move forward from there. It's a great character arc. The most important thing is maintaining the broader themes of the story. It's about the core elements. Changing a few tangential aspects, that's fine. And I get wanting to remove something like sexism in a lead character when retelling a classic story with a high production budget. For better or worse, whether fair or not, a lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable seeing this kind of character arc in someone they're supposed to be rooting for. It's not just because the world's more sensitive now, it's also harder to get away with these kinds of controversial plot lines in live action. Though the actor playing Sokka did jokingly refer to his boomerang as his whole personality, so that's concerning. Then we have Aang. Apparently showrunners have done away with his playful side, his desire to go on adventures and potentially abandon the Avatar role altogether. Aang is driven to learn waterbending from the very beginning. He's in control of the story, pushing events forward from episode 1. Which, yeah, that might be a mistake. Not sure how to justify this. A huge part of Aang's story is that he's just a kid, forced into this central position by circumstances. He was so terrified of these responsibilities he ran away from them and wound up frozen in ice for 100 years. Almost everyone he's ever known is now gone. And yet we're supposed to believe that this kid makes this instantaneous pivot after the challenges he faces only get worse. What? I get wanting to have your lead character drive the story. That generally is the best approach, makes what happens more engaging for viewers. But it still has to make sense. A kid is a kid. You can't just thrust a massive responsibility on them without any sort of leadership training and expect them to take charge. Then again, a lot of the more playful, goofier scenes might not translate that well in live action because, well, live action is boring. Yeah, I said it. Anything overly fun is going to look fake. That's just the way it is. Even if Aang's aversion to taking on the Avatar role were included, I'm sure they'd have to change it and make it more grounded. Something along the lines of him wanting to lead a quiet, normal life in a small village, to fall out of the spotlight forever, to forego the stress, the responsibility of thousands, even millions of lives. I'd be perfectly fine with that storyline. It feels like motivating Aang to master all the elements from the very beginning is just a mistake. Or maybe it's not. I'm sure there are several ways you could handle this journey and still make it compelling. Hopefully, he'll at least be second-guessing his abilities along the way. Maybe the elders who discovered and named him the Avatar made a mistake. Maybe when they reach the Northern Water Tribe, they'll discover that he's incapable of learning waterbending. Maybe all those who believed in him and all those who've waited 100 years for his return, maybe they've all been waiting in vain. That could be an interesting option. Have Aang put on a confident front, but deep down inside, show how conflicted and uncertain he really is. He feels the memories of all his old friends demand him to take action, but he isn't confident he can make any difference. It's all a formality. Aang plunges ahead to ease his own consciousness, not because he believes he has the power to change the world for the better, not because he believes he's the Avatar. If the show chooses to forego the Aang-Katara romance, which it probably will since age gaps really don't work that well in live action, I think Katara could be a more maternal figure here. She could be the one Aang confides in and draws support from. That would not only add to the complexity and conflict of Aang's character, but help retain some of his childlike innocence. He wants to do good by his old mentors and humanity at large, but doesn't have the strength to do so. Not yet. Well, this turned into a different video than expected, lots of rewriting things to ease my concerns for the show. It's actually working. I'm getting excited to see it. Sure, the Cowboy Bebop remake had a terrible ending, and the Death Note movie, yeah, we don't talk about that. Yikes. But One Piece wasn't bad. It made the smart decision to embrace the more cartoonish elements. Crap. Now I'm worried again. I'm sure it's fine. It's Netflix. Most of what they made is pretty terrible. This video hasn't reassured me of anything other than that they still could make a good video based on what they've told us. Different isn't always bad, as they still say for some inexplicable reason, there's more than one way to skin a cat. It's all about the core story. What is it about the animated Last Airbender show that makes it so enduring, so powerful? Why do people love it? If the live-action showrunners can capture that, the rest is somewhat unimportant. Really, making some changes is essential to making it feel like its own thing. How else can you justify why a live-action version should exist otherwise? I'm not looking for a perfect recreation. I just want to be able to recognize the things I love about the original in it. Redress the show, but don't change its identity. Make sense? Hopefully, I can get this video out in a timely manner. I recorded the video before the February 2020 release of the show, but I'm not a very fast editor. Completely forgot the live action was coming out so soon, but it felt like something I should say something about, even if it's not 2D and therefore inherently inferior. Alright, peace.